Right, hello everyone. I am today joined by Gil. Gil, we've known each other for several years now, since before COVID. We met at a mutual friend of ours, Mac McGregor's gym. There was a seminar there, and Gil, I think you were taking photos, weren't you?
I was taking part.
Yeah. Were you taking
Yeah,
part? Who was taking, or was it somebody else was taking
it
photos?
was Matt Reynolds was the from
Yeah,
Barbell Logic
was
Online
was over. Yeah,
it was over, so we were at a kind of lifting day
yeah,
with him. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and we met each other there, and we've kind of kept in touch since then. And what I wanted to talk to Gil about today is Gil's had a very interesting journey through kind of strength training, and the stuff that's went on recently in your life as well. And we'll talk about other things as well. But what I really want to talk to you today about is your experience and what you maybe want to tell other people about that, and to possibly inspire them to start strength training and start looking after their body, and how actually the the information or the current thinking that's there in the zeitgeist of what fitness and health is maybe not necessarily what you've experienced, or what people actually need to start doing. So tell us a little bit about yourself first, Gail. What do you do?
Yeah. So my name's you can see I've got my actual name is Gilleasbuig, which is a
Gilleasbuig.
Scottish
Yeah.
Gaelic name. Yeah. But most of my friends nowadays call me Gil. Since I started dealing in rare books, most of my colleagues are south of the border in London, and
Yeah.
so they couldn't handle Gilleasbuig. So so Gil has become the kind of standard. My wife calls me G, in fact. So
Right.
some people
G-man.
can't even read the G. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so I'm from the Western Isles of Scotland, the north and west, and I've lived in the islands all my life. I'm a native Gaelic speaker, so as well as dealing in rare books, I also teach my mother tongue, Scottish Gaelic, for the University of the Highlands and Islands through Sol Morostic, which is the Gaelic college in Skye. And
Yeah.
since I was 5, I've lived in the Isle of Skye, apart from university and a little bit of work in Glasgow. So I've made my home here in various parts of the island. And yeah, as you can see, I've got a little bookshop here in the garden, which is my office, my shop, and my teaching space as well.
Yeah.
And
Multi-use space.
yes, if you live in this part of the world, generally you have to wear more than one hat to get by comfortably. So I'm not unique in any way. I have
Especially this
many.
time of year.
Exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
I teach. Well, it kind of amounts to probably 2.5, 3 days a week, and the rest of the time I'm working on the books, and I do a lot. I do a few other things too, a bit of broadcasting for the Gaelic radio and things like that. Became more interested in my own kind of heritage, and with that came obviously an interest in older books. And I realized at the time that the books that I really wanted to read were pretty expensive, some of them. So I kind of very organically went from collecting books into bit by bit dealing them as well, selling cheaper books initially to pay for the ones I really wanted. And
Yeah.
then it just kind of evolved into a business, which is quite a relatively common way into that kind of trade.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose I was always quite interested in fitness as well. After around the time I was in university, and after leaving, so this would be about the kind of mid 90s. I I was a really quite a half decent runner, actually. I used to do
Mhm.
I ran a lot, and I was a bit of a stick insect, but I could I could I did there was a half marathon in Portree, the Sky half marathon, which I would do. But my probably my favorite sport was swimming. It was the one sport. I was rubbish at football, rubbish at shinty, hopeless at rugby, and probably because I was too light. But the one thing I was pretty good at since I was a kid was swimming. So that was my kind of that became my my favorite aerobic exercise. Obviously, running. It's a bit hard on the knees and the shins, and I kind of graduated from being a runner into a swimmer. And
Right.
I was really keen to actually not necessarily compete, but to join the Inverness club, the Inverness Masters, and I did a bit of just competitions for fun. And of course, the thing arose: how do I get faster in the swimming pool? Because I'm like working really hard, got great stamina, but I'm not. I obviously need to get stronger. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
people I knew who were doing really well, they did strength training outside of the gym. So I thought, all right, this is interesting. So I got a gym membership to the Sky Gym here, which is still running. It's moved premises, but it's still a going concern. And of course, I did what most people do, which is go on YouTube and see all these fancy guys with six packs telling you that you need to do 16 exercises for each workout. And the more you do, the more variety you can introduce, the better. And you must do this exercise. And cracky, well, I'm already doing 16, but I have to do this one as well. So I went down that usual route of training fairly consistently, but not really actually getting anywhere, which I think a lot of people have found. Because I am, if anything, I am a non-athlete. If we had races in school, I would usually be either last or second last. If we had feats of strength, I would be at the bottom of the pile. So genetically, I am not one of these guys. I remember sharing a flat with a friend in Aberdeen, and he was really annoying because he did nothing apart from ride a bike. And he had these amazing abs. He had really nice biceps, very vascular guy. And that just really annoyed me because that was him.
Yeah, yeah.
That was him naturally.
Yeah.
He could have started a YouTube channel promoting fitness without actually doing anything. So, I mean, this is what a lot of people don't realize. A lot of these guys, or pretty much all of these guys, are born. They're not really made as such. Obviously, when they train, they can emphasize and enhance what they have. But I didn't have any of that. Mm-hmm. So I found it very, very frustrating. I realized I think I've got some old training logs that I used to keep. And, like I'd be training for, a year and a half, 2 years, and my bench press would go up from 45 kilos to 52.5 kilos. I thought, is this really, over 2 years, is this really what I can expect? Is there more to kind of strength training than this kind of piddly? And so, of course, you're attracted to all the flashy guys like V-Shred and Athlean-X and all these guys that are online who are specimens in terms of what people are drawn to these days, especially men, guys with decent biceps, six packs, and you think, I want that. And they say, well, if you do this, you'll get it. And I realized that, well, for want of a better word, was a lie. Because I wasn't. Obviously, I was, I felt pretty fit and healthy, but I wanted to do something that would enhance, like it improved my swimming a little bit. My times went down a tiny bit, but I thought there must be something else.
Yeah.
And so,
so were you a bit? Was your frustration, did that come from the kind of the gap between what was promised and what was delivered, shall we say?
Exactly. Yes, that's right. There's this kind of they hold out, a lot of these guys hold out this prize of really impressive strength and impressive physique if you do this. And I was doing this, what they were telling me to do: exercise variety, lots of high volume exercises, some of the like touching on some of the main lifts, but not really staying away from the actual barbell and working on machines, working on kind of abdominal kind of regimes, which I hated with a passion, and realizing, well, for me, this isn't getting me anywhere.
So then I'm assuming at some point in this you found something to do with starting strength or barbell logic or something along those lines.
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
It was. it was a video by it was a starting strength video. Mark Ripito, this gruff Texan, who was, and I was listening to his video. There were podcasts, I think. I didn't actually know what he looked like for a long time. And
I think at the very start, I think Mark Ripito did like a Q&A. It was just a paper Q&A. It wasn't. I mean, it's turned into a very high production thing now, and it's really good. And I think you've got to get a membership now to listen to the podcast. But it started off with him, just people would email him or write. I think even just write in or send message on social media, and I think it was just called Ask Rip. And I think there's like 60 or 70 of those. They'll still be on YouTube somewhere. They're very entertaining, but also very useful as well. So lots of good stuff on there.
And I think I remember the kind of the light bulb went on for me listening to something he did about cardio and running in particular. And I think it's a video called "Why You Shouldn't Be Running." I thought, that's interesting, because I was always doing a fair bit of running and swimming as a kind of main exercise or the primary focus, and the weight training was something kind of additional that I did on the side, or the kind of mucking about in the gym basically, which was what I was doing. And everything kind of made sense. It was kind of like, there's something so simple and straightforward and intuitive about it, and then you can, well, why didn't I think of that before? Because he basically said, the thrust of it is, in order to get stronger, you have to lift more weight, and that involves doing things progressively, adding weight in a logical, progressive way that your body can tolerate, that you can recover from the workout, and each time you're adding more weight. And that was just a kind of, well, like with my own kind of science background, everything just made total sense, even though it was kind of running contrary to this idea that exercise variety is what's required, rather than a small number of effective exercises that can actually stimulate your entire system to grow and get stronger and become more efficient and more useful. So that was a real, and he outlined a very simple, what we call the LP, the linear progression, where you're basically adding weight with each workout.
Yeah.
But what happened? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's the correct number of exercises, the very, very context dependent. And the way I try and explain this to people is, you could do one exercise, or you could do a million. At some point in that spectrum is going to be the correct amount of variation for you to get you progressing towards the goals that you have. Yes. And I don't think one exercise is the answer. I don't think 20 is the answer. At some point, and I would say probably for a beginner, sticking just to the main lifts, so squats, presses, bench presses, deadlifts, power cleans, and chin-ups. What that allows, so that's only 6 different things. And as you said, you were following these exercise plans where they were probably having you do supersets of 3 different exercises for 3 different supersets. So you're doing like 9 or 10 or 12 exercises per workout. And when you do that much stuff during a workout, none of it's really heavy enough to actually help you get any better than you. Whereas when you stick to a small, I wouldn't say small, but a concise number of exercises, something that's going to work the whole body as a system, then you know that you're going to be able to lift heavy enough. It's actually going to stimulate your body to get stronger and get better. And that's the way I try and explain it to people, is there's not a specific number of exercises you should be doing in the gym. It's all context dependent, but less is probably more effective than more, which is really counterintuitive to a lot of what we're told about fitness and health. We're always told, oh, if we do more, we get a better outcome. Actually, not really true most of the time. It can be true some of the time, but most of the time it's not. And I'll let you continue.
Yes, I think I agree with all of that. And I think the problem is because everybody is different, and there is a subset of men who will probably get stronger whatever they do. And these are the guys who tend to have the most confidence. They're most likely to start YouTube channels proclaiming what they've done. Look at me.
Yeah.
I've been doing, 68 exercises a week, and this is what you can achieve. And so, yeah, that's it. But for average bods like myself, especially older, because I was in my 40s before I even touched a barbell. We do need to focus on some not simple, but some primary movements that involve a lot of muscle mass, that involve a good range of motion that is safe and dosable, and that can actually, as you say, make your system grow. And the best and simplest thing that we have for that is the barbell, because you can increase the weight in tiny adjustments, especially for some of the upper body lifts, like the bench press and the press. You can't do that with machines, and you can't do it with dumbbells either, unless you've got 400 sets of dumbbells in your gym. So that was a real revelation.
Yeah, like that ability to. I mean, I have some of my female clients on their overhead press are going up half a kilo at a time between workouts. So that ability to have really to make the increments as small as they need to be in order to be able to have progress is invaluable. And really, like you said, the only way you can do that is with a barbell, or certainly the simplest way you have to do it is with a barbell. There are ways to do it with machines and dumbbells, but they all require specialized equipment, gym pins, having a machine that actually allows you to do things, whereas the barbell is so ergonomic. It's very efficient in terms of how much space it takes up. You can put it away after you're done with it. You don't have to, like a machine still stays on the floor whether you're using it or not, whereas a barbell can go and sit in the corner. And these are all things you got to take into consideration. But yeah, the small increments is one of the magic things about the barbell, is we can make the dose go up in an appropriate fashion to provide that stimulus to get the person stronger.
Yes. Yeah. So I basically went about. I thought this makes total sense. So off my own back, with a little help from some very kind folk in the Sky Gym as well, who were. We had a few folk over the years in Sky who were competing as lifters, and a couple of them took me under their wing, and I started doing the basic kind of barbell movements: the squat, deadlift, bench press, overhead press, and because I'd obviously been overtraining previously. I was underweight, probably. I can't remember exactly, but I would have been around 12 stone at that time, very skinny, and basically, obviously I was seeing some progress, but I knew that there was something missing as well. And obviously I'd given myself lots of aches and pains. I had a sore shoulder, my knees were very creaky, and just how I'd felt all my life, various problems with my back, continual back pain. I had chronic shoulder pain for a good over 10 years. This right shoulder and shoulder blade were often waking me up with pain. So when you try and start pressing from that position, for example, it was awful. Even the empty bar, 20 kilos, it was a real grind at that point for me. So I was struggling, trying to make too much progress without enough nutrition. I had this idea that I could stay that weight and become super strong, which was, of course, a big misconception. That in order to get stronger, we have to grow. That's the whole point. If muscles are to grow, you have to feed them in the right way. And so I made some progress. Things started to move up the way, but I knew I wasn't quite there. And so I actually joined. This is back when Starting Strength actually had online coaching, and I don't want to go into the whole background of that.
Don't go in that minefield.
Won't go in that minefield at all. But basically, I was very lucky because I got a coach, which some of you will know, perhaps. He was Carl Schroot. Carl Schroot, I should say. He's a strength coach based in Chicago, and basically the opposite of me. Basically a gentleman monster who, probably for his age, one of the strongest guys in that state. Basically showed me what I was doing wrong with the lifts. I tried to teach myself using online resources, but there are many aspects of the barbell lifts that need careful coaching, especially for people like me who aren't athletes. I've done some coaching with some people, and it's really annoying because I show them how to squat, and all of a sudden, they're squatting really perfectly first time round. I feel this sense of anger because it took me ages to learn how to squat properly. And but this is the thing. Some people's intelligence, mine, is kind of academic. Other people have an innate kind of physical intelligence, a sense of how they move. They're athletic, and they can learn these things very easily. But I needed actual coaching, and Carl helped me to get some confidence and to build up my lifts to a certain point as well. But again, I was still struggling with certain aches and pains, and that's when I moved coaches. So we had Carl, who is this natural, monstrously strong fellow who competes, and I found my somebody who knew where I was coming from, who was we mentioned him earlier, Mac McGregor, who has a gym in the East Coast, and he knew what it was like to struggle with aches and pains. He's just a few years younger than me, and so when that transition happened, the kind of things really started to move forward for me, because he understood that I needed to maybe take things at a slightly slower pace. And I also had the benefit of getting one-to-one coaching with him in person, which I think for some people like me, that is really necessary, just to really bed in some of the intricacies of the squat, especially, but also the deadlift and the other compound movements.
Yeah,
so from there,
make a comment about. I'll make a comment about online coaching is fantastic. It gives people the opportunity to get access to really top quality coaches who, whether geographically and perhaps even financially, because online coaching is a third of the price it would be to be coached by these people in person, and it allows you access to someone who really knows what they're doing. But sometimes there's just something that there's a je ne sais quoi with in-person hands-on coaching that just accelerates things just a million miles an hour. I've had many online clients, and I would say probably 25% of them have been purely online clients, and that's actually a bit of a different skill set to teach someone purely online, because you have to take it very slowly. It's just fixing one thing at a time. The feedback, whereas the feedback loop is a lot more delayed, because you've got to just get them to fix one thing per workout, especially when it's something as complicated as well, not complicated, but can be complex with the squat, which because there's lots of different moving parts. I mean, barbell coaching is not the most complicated thing in the world, but like you said, there are people who just pick it up a lot easier than other people. But yeah, if you have access to a coach who can like just fix everything in like an hour, and that just makes your progress, because then your technique doesn't become a variable that has to be considered. And that's the way I try and the argument that I have with people, or the argument that I make for people having good technique, is to make sure that that's another variable that you can remove from the equation of what's happening with your workouts. If your technique is wildly different from workout to workout, and you haven't dialed that in and got it repeatable and have a good execution of how you're thinking about it in your mind, then that's another variable. Like, you could squat 100 kilograms on Monday and then try and do it again on Friday, and it could feel very different just because you've got your technique wrong. So that's the way I try and get across the value of an actual in-person coaching session. And in terms of like my own coaching practice, if someone can come and see me in the gym before they start online coaching with me, I very much advise them to do that, because what might take me like a month to fix with online coaching can take me 1 or 2 sessions in person. So yeah, so obviously you like that relationship, you kind of somewhat fortuitously had Mac just like a couple of hours away in Nairn. Where was his gym?
He's Fochabers. Yeah.
Fochabers, yes. Okay, yeah.
A bit east of Nairn, yeah.
Gotta be careful how you say that.
That's right.
So what did you start to, like, you're saying it kind of like took a bit of a hockey stick once you kind of started coaching with Mac? What things did you notice?
I think what Mac, well, obviously when I went to Mac, there were still lots of aspects of my technique that were very poor. And I think Mac was a little bit daunted initially himself, because he was like, he saw me benching and he said, "Oh gosh, that's awful." But because Mac, like me, he's he understands what it's like to struggle to come to grips with these things. So he was, although while Carl was a great coach, I had somebody here who was kind of like a fellow traveler who knew what it was like to have to really concentrate and to work hard on actually nailing things down. And so Mac helped me kind of deconstruct everything and start again in a way. And it was really exciting, because all of a sudden things started to take off. I was he gave me basic kind of ideas for nutrition as well, getting more protein in, maybe a slight calorie surplus, so I could start building myself up. And it was fantastic. And I realized that, because I'd got into this mindset that barbell training maybe wasn't for me. Maybe I was this kind of fraction of a 1% of the population who just never going to get anywhere really with this, try as they might. But Mac kind of helped assure me and give me the confidence to do that, to know that if you do this properly, and if you really concentrate on everything, not just what you're doing inside the gym, but how you're eating, how you're sleeping. And I very gradually he managed to build my confidence and to change my mindset from one of kind of a victim who's just always going to struggle to somebody who say, I know I can actually do this if I turn up consistently and do what I'm told to do as it's put out, and also look after myself a bit better outside the gym, eat better, sleep better, and so forth. So it's a combination of all these things, and we started to, like you say, make real progress. So like I mentioned before, my bench press going up about 4 or 5 kilos in 2 years to kind of to the low 50s. But basically, Mac helped me to take it from there up
Mhm.
To double that and more. So that was really exciting. And
What's your numbers now then? What
so
what
that
you doing
yeah, the
on the
number.
lifts
I mean,
now?
I'm not pulling. I'm not doing anything really exceptional, but I'm still I'm kind of aiming for some, to improve some PBs. So my my squat, I've got up to like 140 plus kilos, but I've always had there's been some issues with my adductor muscles, which have always been kind of tricky. And the deadlift, again, I got up into the up, almost to 190, I think, for
Mhm.
reps, and I was kind of rack pulling about 200 kilos, which is, I mean, when I think back, that was just kind of like beyond a
Yeah,
kind of cartoonish kind of dream for me to be actually moving that kind of weight at my age. Because I mean, I remember back, like where, 90 kilos, like for a set of 5 was like a real grind for me when I
on
started, which
your
is probably,
deadlift.
yeah, on the deadlift, because most guys who are fit and healthy can cope with 100 kilos fairly early on. But I mean, for me, it was a real grind.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I suppose that the bench is, I mean, my bench is, well, because I've got these long gangly arms, my bench is, I mean, I got up to 110 for a single,
Yeah, nice.
which
Good
again,
man.
I hope to move above that
Yeah,
once I get going again. I should maybe say I've had a period of illness. I got Lyme disease last year, which
yeah,
totally flattened everything, and I'm just
yeah.
building up again just now. And
I mean that is something. One of the and it's interesting you mentioned that because one of the biggest benefits of strength training and being a strong individual is when stuff happens like that, you are so much more resilient, you are so much more robust,
mm,
and like Lyme disease is a pretty serious like condition. Like people get
no,
very ill, and it can have very long term lasting effects, especially when it comes to um, like losing muscle mass, losing body weight, and then vis-a-vis because you're just inactive, you can't use like Lyme disease. You just don't have the energy to do anything. You'll lose bone mass, you'll lose muscle mass, you'll lose your functionality as a human being. So if you're already at a point where you're not that strong and
yeah,
you don't have a big reserve to
yeah,
lose, you may be at the point where actually you start tipping into sarcopenia, osteopenia, and have all these downstream effects that are not like Lyme disease didn't cause those things, but they are a reflection of the poor state you were in before.
yes,
And the the time and the effort that you spent building your resilience
mm,
really probably made the Lyme disease a lot less of an issue than it could have been.
mm.
Would that be fair to say?
I would say absolutely. I shudder to think what would have happened if it had been, say, 8, 9 years ago, when I was very, very thin anyway,
Mm-hmm.
weak, and yeah. So yeah, it was pretty awful. I suppose, I mean, in some ways, it's the illest I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
A good month, 6 weeks of really not being able to do anything other than drag myself around, go for long naps, get up, drag myself around, go to bed. No cardio, no lifting, nothing. Um, and it's been it's been a long tunnel to get through. But like you say, I'm quite surprised, especially, I mean, um, one of the things that happened is that obviously I do have issues skeletally, and we all do, but my right shoulder, and that kind of just flared up all of a sudden. It was beginning of July last year, and that was the first warning sign that there was something wrong. All of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, any any um any presses overhead over 50 kilos, it was like, oh crumbs, this
Yeah,
is like,
yeah,
I haven't experienced this for a long time, and I start to panic. And I thought, maybe it's just a niggle, it'll go away. And then it started to get worse and worse and worse. And all of a sudden, I'm back down almost to the empty bar, 30 kilos, feeling like just awful. So that was the first warning sign, I think. And then other things started to creep in as well. And I realized, and I remember by the end of October, late September, early October last year, I remember looking at the gym and thinking, it's the last place on earth I want to go to at the moment. Yeah. Going from somebody who was really, I trained consistently for 5 years, 3-4 days a week, no bother. And then all of a sudden, I hate that place because everything hurt, nothing worked. But like you say, it's not just the physical resilience that you have. You build up a reserve of mental resilience as well. Yeah. So I was able to, instead of giving into this kind of the victim mentality that I used to have, I thought, you just need to weather this out. Once you start feeling a bit better, got the antibiotics. Once you start feeling a bit better, you can start. You know how to do this. Yeah. You know how to do an LP by yourself. And that's what I've been doing. And it's been quite surprising. Going, just to give you an example, at New Year, again, I was very tentatively kind of pressing about 40 kilos for just like triples. And, this morning I did 62.5 for 5 sets of 3. And there was no pain at all. And it's like, this is magical. But, it's what I experienced before. And I knew it would happen if I, just trust the process and don't give in to the kind of old voices that tell you, well, this is not for you. Just give up. Go and start crochet or something.
Yeah. I mean, that unfortunately is the mindset that a lot of people have when they get older in life. They think they're past it, or they think they're over the hill. Or exactly. this is lifting weights is a young man's game. But actually, whenever I have a discussion with something, the point I'll put to them is actually maybe the reason you feel like that is because of the way you're thinking. It's not that lifting weights it's for young people. It's that lifting weights keeps you young. And that's and doing hard stuff voluntarily. I mean, like Matt Reynolds Matt was my coach for about a year and a half, and he made me do some hard stuff. But voluntarily accepting to do something hard, you don't have to do it. You don't have to go and rack pull 200 kilos. Like you're the rest of your day will be fine if you don't rack pull 200 kilos. But it's like the speech from Braveheart, Mel Gibson. If you could trade, if you run, you will live. What would you trade that day and one day and your deathbed? Would you trade all those days between this day and that for one chance to fight for your freedom? Like, I mean, like that heavy rack pull is it's a symbol of you fighting for yourself. It's a symbol of you not giving in to the boot of life pressing you down. And it's a symbol that people need to know about, because I think a lot of people think it's a bit hopeless at the moment, especially as they get older and they're in pain and they just think that's the way life is going to be.
Yes, absolutely.
They might have to put might have to put in some hard work, but the grass is greener on the other side. I know that's always the grass isn't greener on the other side, isn't always greener, but like the grass is greener on the other side. So some of my most consistent and successful clients have been they have the hue of someone who they don't necessarily enjoy training, but what they know is they know that this is going to be good. Like, this is something they need to do to keep themselves healthy, to keep themselves sane, to keep themselves so that when they're in their 30s now, as like most of my clients are kind of like 25 to 45, they're in their 30s now, they know that when they're 55, 60, 65, they're still going to be capable, strong human being.
Yeah.
And and I think that's the biggest lesson that people can possibly take from your story, is that running and swimming and all that stuff, that's all great. Really encourage people to do that. But you've got to, if you want to be as strong and capable as you can be, you've got to be lifting weights. You've got to be strength training. And obviously there's a million ways out there to do that. Some are more effective than others. But it's always worth talking to an expert, whether that's Mac, whether that's Carl, whether that's me, whether it's Matt Reynolds, having a conversation with that person and saying, okay, is what I'm doing a sensible approach to this? That will cost you a little bit of money, and it might cost you a little bit of time, and it might cost you a little bit of ego, shall we say, to basically to someone to tell you, look, you got the right idea, but you're taking the wrong approach to this. We need to take a slightly different approach. And having that growth mindset, which I think is something also that strength training teaches you, that growth mindset, to be able to be humble, to be respectful of the fact that you're dealt a hand by your genetics, that it doesn't really matter what that hand is. You've just got to make the best. You've just got to make the best. Play the hand the best you can, and don't worry about what anyone else is doing. But you're when you go.
I just agree with everything you say, and just that idea of things being hard. There's something I learned, and it's a very simple kind of concept, but in a sense, everything that you do in life is hard in a sense. It's like but the difference between, say, going to the gym and just like sitting around eating chips and getting fat and weak, you're basically choosing something hard. If you're doing the gym, you're choosing something hard. But the thing about the thing that you're doing in the gym is that it's going to reward you later on.
Yeah.
The thing about what you're doing sitting on the couch, it's going to punish you later on and reward you right now. And I think that's true of so many. I've thought about so many things that we do. The things that reward you right this second are the things that are bad for you, and the things that you should probably try and cut out of your life. And the things like strength training that are punishing at the moment that you do them, these are the things that reward you down the line, and mean that you're not going to be struggling as I'll be 70 in 20 years. And I'm quite confident that, all being well, my health, everything being equal, I'm going to be a lot more useful, a lot more resilient, a lot more fun to be around if I have grandchildren by then, than some doddery old guy with a stick, which is definitely what I would be if I was to allow my phenotype just to go its own way and to not train. And I try and explain this to friends that, you're basically choosing something hard at the moment by not training, but you just haven't met it yet. It's down the line.
It's there's a really good phrase. I think it was Carl that actually said it. Carl Shoot.
Carl Shoot.
There's no solutions. There's only trade-offs.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what you're doing by lifting weights is you're trading a discomfort now for a healthy body in the future. You're putting yourself, and I think we need to be careful with the way we're talking about this. Like, especially when you start strength training, it doesn't actually need to be that hard to have a really good effect. In fact, it can't be that hard, because you're just not that strong when you start. So you need to really be careful how you I sometimes, like, I'm a bit gung-ho about these things. I'm like, lift heavy and do all these things, but actually that can sometimes put people off. But if you start gently, do your sets of 5, get a little bit heavier every time, and eventually, I've just, really good illustration of this was, I've just started with a a new client who started with me at the start of January, and his first session with me, we squatted 25 kilos for 3 sets of 5. And just yesterday, he squatted 55 kilos for 3 sets of 5.
Nice.
So he's more than doubled his squat, but it's still pretty easy. Like he's still, so what I ask is, and this might be sacrilege, but I ask for a descriptive RPE from my clients of the set rather than a prescriptive RPE. So
Yes.
what I'll ask them is, how did that feel out of 10 after the set is done? And he's coming back to me with like 5s and 6s for pretty much everything. And I was doing, so what I do is I go and see him once a month in Prestwick, at the gym he goes to there. So I just go in and see him, and I'll do a session with him. And one of the other gym goers, who I'm assuming he's friends with, said, "Oh, make sure you don't take it too easy on him." And then I went, I did it, so I was saying, yeah, don't worry, it'll get hard, don't worry. But even though that guy was joking, he was having a bit of a play around. Still, the idea that when you go to the gym, you need to absolutely rinse yourself and have nothing left when you leave the gym is it's quite pervasive in the fitness industry and people who like go to the gym.
So
but it's
I'd
really
say
not that.
The kind of bodybuilder mentality,
Yeah.
I mean, bodybuilding is so different from what we are advocating here. Yeah, and it's
it's an that mindset of and I mean, like that's the extent of the conversation I had with the guy. But that kind of comment and that mindset gives a window into how that person's thinking about going to the gym. It's like they need to, and like there will be hard workouts. There will be workouts where you feel pretty spent afterwards, but that should not be a goal within itself. The goal should be to add weight to the bar, to stimulate the body to get stronger.
Yes.
And you can rinse yourself in the gym and be exhausted when you leave, but not really have done anything you've not done anything to get you a step towards closer to your goal. So when I
was talking about the couple of years when I was training very religiously and not getting anywhere, DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, that was part of my life, and I thought it was kind of and I thought, well, I'm suffering, but I'm not actually getting anywhere. And to say, like, I remember when I was training consistently, I wasn't ill, and I took my deadlift from about 120 up to 185, 187 for a set of 5. I didn't have DOMS once during that whole process, and it it pretty much went like that.
Yeah.
And it's because basically, like you say, you're not absolutely killing yourself every time you go in the gym. And there's if you want to be sore, there's plenty of stuff you can do to make yourself sore for the next 3 or 4 days. You're welcome to do it, but the idea that is going to get you somewhere is not necessarily true.
There's even on a kind of a research basis, there's even been research to suggest that you don't actually start adapting. And that's what we're giving a stimulus and we're adapting. And then we're seeing that result next time we go in the gym. There's research out there to suggest, and it's fairly, like, there's not a lot of it, but you don't actually start getting stronger until you don't feel sore anymore.
Yeah, I hadn't quite heard that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, so well, it makes sense when you think about it, because when you have DOMS, there's inflammation, there's like loads of, like, sometimes even swelling. It's tender. If you imagine that's you have stressed your body so much that it's the decrease in performance is so low, it's gone down so much it's going to take so many resources just to simply get back to baseline. There's nothing going to be left over to actually improve. So you have to make sure that the stimulus you're giving your body is appropriate and not overwhelming. I mean, like I can go and make my hamstring sore. I'll do 4 sets of 10 RDLs, and my hamstrings will be sore for days. But that doesn't mean my deadlift got stronger. It doesn't mean my back got stronger. It just means I got sore.
You made yourself sore.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a good note to finish on, Gil.
Nice.
Thank you very much for having a chat with me. I'm sure we'll do this again because there's many stones left unturned there. Yeah. Plenty more to talk about. It's just the realities of I've got to go and see a client now. So but thanks for having a chat with me so much. I mean, where can people find you if they're not that there will be, but if there's anyone interested in any rare book, where can people find you?
Well, I'm easy to find online. Gilleasbuig, Gilleasbuig. I'm the only book dealer in the world with that name, as far as I'm aware. So easy to find. Little shop here in the north of Skye. Plenty of signs to show you where it is. And I've just started today a YouTube channel to help people to speak Gaelic more clearly as well. So if anybody's interested in that, happens to be, check out.
My mum will be interested in that.
Gaelic speech coach.
She does. She dabbles in that. I'll get all these links off you, and I'll just put them in the description, and people can find with you and keep up with your journey. And if they want any books or want to learn how to speak Gaelic, then you're the man to go to.
They can easily find me on Facebook too, and I put a mix. I mean, I put everything on there between books and lifting and other interests as well. So if you want to friend me on Facebook as well, I'll be happy to do that.
Thanks, mate. I'll speak to you later. Okay.
Thanks very much, James. Cheers.
Cheers.